Hello and welcome to another NTN Live. My name is Jessie Leons. We're coming to you from the Parliament building in downtown Castries for continuation of parliamentary proceedings. This time, the sitting of the upper house, that is the Senate, coming off of last week's sitting of the House of Assembly, during which the Prime Minister and Minister for Finance delivered the debate address and tabled the Appropriations Bill for 2021-2022. If you're joining, a special good morning to you on air online for St. Lucians in the diaspora, St. Lucians and residents here on Ireland. Good morning to you. I'd like to let you know that protocols to curtail the spread of COVID-19 continue. We'll get into that in just a bit, but just to give you the latest figures with respect to COVID-19 here on Ireland. On Monday, the 19th of April, that was just yesterday, we recorded 2 new cases of COVID-19. And of course, that was out of a batch of 30 samples that were taken. The 2 newly diagnosed individuals were seen at various community respiratory clinics, and during which time they were asked to remain in isolation. Confirmation was also received of the recovery of 14 individuals. The ministry also reports, regrettably, 2 COVID-19 related deaths, bringing the total number of deaths in country to 69. Death number 68 is a 65-year-old male from the Castries district with underlying medical illnesses, and death number 69 is a 68-year-old male from the Suffolk district. He also did have underlying medical illnesses as well. The Ministry of Health, as well as us here at the GIS, extend condolences. We commiserate with the families and loved ones of these individuals. As of Saturday, April 17th, the total number of individuals who have received their first dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca here on Ireland is 23,688, and 39 individuals have so far received their second dose. At present, the Ministry of Health is now in its second phase of the national COVID-19 vaccine campaign, and they are targeting right now persons within the education sector, commercial, tourism and transportation sectors. Today, Tuesday, the health team is administering vaccines at the Philip Marsley grounds and the Dan Sammy cricket grounds. Anyone who's interested, you can go online, get pre-registered. hmi.govt is the site to pre-register, or you can contact your nearest community wellness center. Let them know that you're interested so that they can pre-register on your behalf. As I indicated earlier, the government of St. Lucia has extended the COVID-19 prevention and control protocols until May 16th, 2021, as St. Lucia continues to manage the spread of the pandemic, the COVID-19 situation. The daily curfew remains from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. until May 16th, 2021. Please take note of this. The daily curfew remains from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. until May 16th, 2021. And work from home and reduced contact meetings continues to be encouraged by the ministry, by the government of St. Lucia. All agencies and businesses will continue to implement a blended service operations approach where possible for employees. And so it remains for many of the businesses here on Ireland who have instituted a work from home regime. It continues as so. Business operating hours, all business operations and commercial activities shall cease operation at 9 p.m. To 4 a.m. daily, as guided by the curfew, as I mentioned earlier, through the state of emergency, which remains in effect. Restrictions on social gatherings. We have social gatherings being restricted to no more than 10 people, and that is of the immediate family. In public and private settings, individuals are encouraged to limit their contact as much as possible and adhere to the necessary protocols, as well as being mindful to the general hygiene procedures, and no allowances are being given for mass gatherings or social events of any kind, or loud music permits coming from the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Religious institutions, all daily or regular church and religious services are permitted in accordance with the social distancing protocols. Religious institutions may carry out services according to the square footage of the church. This is guided by each institution's guidelines and protocols approved by the Ministries of Equity and Health. And special religious rites, including baptisms, weddings and funerals, will be limited to a maximum of 50 individuals, that is inclusive of observers and service leaders. In terms of special events, we have boat excursions being mentioned in the protocols. It's being allowed for up to 10 persons, and this is only permissible for crew yacht charters and family boaters. Excursion plans must be reported to the lighthouse ahead of the journey. Absolutely no day boat party charters will be allowed, so no boat rides, nothing to that effect. Only boat excursions for up to 10 people, and this is only permissible for crewed yacht charters and family boaters. In terms of restrictions on sporting activity, all competitive and high contact sporting activities, inclusive of indoor and outdoor trainings, local competitions or social activities, are prohibited. Provisions do apply for individuals or immediate family households to exercise in a safe open air space, and gyms are permitted per square footage and protocols. Non-contact sporting activity is allowed if there are no more than 15 persons in attendance, excluding spectators and crowds. So these are the latest updates. Also, finally, the schools, which have been talked about since last week, are allowed in-class training and instruction. The kids are back at school as of 19th April. Schools are to follow strict protocols and regulations issued by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education's community plan for schools in St. Lucia to operate safely on a specified system. So that is the update. The Government of St. Lucia extending the COVID-19 prevention and control protocols until May 16th, 2021, as we continue to manage this pandemic, the spread of COVID-19. So far, we're seeing a drop in the figures in terms of the rate of infection here on Ireland. That is good news. We encourage you to continue to adhere to the protocols, ensure that you are on the right side of the law. And speaking of law, we are coming to you live from the hallowed walls of Parliament today in downtown Castries, where we'll see the sitting of the Senate starting in just momentarily. This is coming off of last week's parliamentary sittings with the House of Assembly, a meeting for, among other matters, the Appropriations Bill 2021-2022. Also, the Prime Minister and Minister for Finance did give his debate address. And so this week we will be hearing from the Senate. They have other matters, but primarily to discuss the Appropriations Bill. We do have present representatives from each side of the House, the government, opposition, as well as independent represented here. And of course, we do encourage you to stay tuned for today's proceedings and for how long it continues into this week. At this time, we just want to let you know, do stand by. We should be expecting the President of the Senate to make her entrance anytime now. We're seeing the leader of government business in the Honourable House. Roger, I'm not sure if you could give some optics with respect to that. On the floor in the chamber, the leader of government business and the Minister for Health and Wellness, Honourable Mary Isaac. We also have the Minister with responsibility for culture and the creative industries, Honourable Senator, the Honourable Fortuna Belrose. We also have the leader of the opposition in the Senate, Honourable Gideon Ferdinand, Senator Gideon Ferdinand. We have the independent senator present, Dr. Adrian Augier, Senator Dr. Adrian Augier present with us as well as many other senators making their way into the chambers for today for the proceedings in the Honourable House. Be reminded that we can expect reactions to the Appropriations Bill for 2021-2022 that was tabled in the Honourable House last week. It will be forwarded by the leader of government business in the Senate, in the person of Senator the Honourable Mary Isaac, and she will be forwarding the Appropriations Bill 2021-2022. We will hear from all sides of the House their reactions with respect to this legislation, and this will lead the matters being tabled in the Honorable House today. So we encourage you to stay tuned for today's proceedings. There is much to look out for. Of course, you can also weigh in on the conversation in our Facebook Live. That is the Government of St. Lucia Facebook Live. And you could also join on our YouTube channel as well, Government of St. Lucia YouTube channel. Okay, at this time we're getting word that the President of the Senate should be making her way in.
Let us pray.
Today I would like to give some encouragement. And the word encouragement means the action of giving someone support, confidence, or hope. Persuasion to do or to continue doing something. Let us not become weary in doing well. For at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Blessed is the man that remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive a crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. Let us pray. Almighty God, by whom alone King reigns and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servants have gathered together in thy name to do humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and to guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we have in thy fear always before our eyes, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsel may be to the glory of thy blessed name. The maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity one towards another. Through Christ Jesus our Lord. Amen. The grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen.
Oath of allegiance of new senator.
I, Vincent London, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, and that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. So help me God.
Announcements. Good morning, senators, and to you, Senator London. I trust your sojourn with us will be productive and fruitful, and welcome. I have received correspondence from the Speaker of the House of Assembly advising that the following bill and motion were passed in the House of Assembly forwarded to the Senate for its concurrence. National Savings and Development Bonds Act, Resolution of Parliament to raise funds by the issue of savings bonds. Appropriation 2021 to 2022. I have received an excuse from Senator the Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security, who is also unwell and unable to attend today's sitting. I have also received an excuse from Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis, who will be late. I would like to express condolences To the former Senator Joachim Henry on the passing of his son, Dr. Joshima Henry, a loving son with so much promise. Senator Henry, we are truly sorry. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Senators, I wish to express my sadness at the distress wrought against St. Vincent and the Grenadines by the La Soufrière volcano eruption. I pray that the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines will be strengthened and comforted over time, and of course, its people can rely on its Caribbean family for support. In April, we celebrate our Youth Month. The theme this year is celebrating youth excellence and resilience. Happy Youth Month. Statements by ministers. Appointment of sessional committees.
Madam President, I beg to request that we defer the appointment of sessional committees to a later time.
And so that the appointment of sessional committees is deferred. Papers to be laid.
Madam President, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 42 of 2021, Constitution of St. Lucia State of Emergency Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 43 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Physical Distancing Number 3 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 44 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Prohibition of Assembly Number 2 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 45 of 2021, Legal Profession Eligibility, Richane Rongel Cunningham Order, Statutory Instrument Number 45A of 2021, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital or current expenditure, COVID-19 response, Recovery and Resilience Development Policy Program. Statutory Instrument Number 45B of 2021, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to borrow for capital or current expenditure, 6th Water, Viewport Water Supply Redevelopment Project, Amended Loan Agreement. Statutory Instrument Number 45C of 2021, Public Finance Management Act, Resolution of Parliament to approve an extension of time to lay the estimates. Statutory Instrument Number 45D of 2021, Value Added Tax, Amendment of Schedule 3 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 45E of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Physical Distancing Number 3 Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 50 of 2021, Legal Profession Eligibility, Tito Jerome Holder Order. Statutory Instrument Number 51 of 2021, Legal Profession Eligibility, Anselm Colin Keynes Order. Statutory Instrument Number 52 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Physical Distancing Number 3 Amendment Number 1 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 52A of 2021, St. Lucia Parliament Proclamation Proroguing Parliament. Statutory Instrument Number 52B of 2021, St. Lucia Parliament Appointment of Session of Parliament. Statutory Instrument Number 53 of 2021, St. Lucia National Housing Corporation, Kareli Housing Development Vesting Order. Statutory Instrument Number 54 of 2021, Price Control Amendment Number 4 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 55 of 2021, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 4 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 56 of 2021, Special Development Areas, Amendment of Schedule 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 57 of 2021, COVID-19, Prevention and Control, Physical Distancing Number 3, Amendment Number 3 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 58 of 2021, Constitution of St. Lucia, State of Emergency, Amendment Number 2 Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 59 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Prohibition of Assembly, Number 3 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 60 of 2021, Price Control Amendment Number 5 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 61 of 2020, Excise Tax, Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 5 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 62 of 2021, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank Agreement, Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 63 of 2021, Constitution of St. Lucia, State of Emergency, Amendment Number 3 Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 64 of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Physical Distancing Number 3, Amendment Number 4 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 65 of 2021, Civil Aviation Security Regulations. Statutory Instrument Number 66 of 2021, Banking, Royal Bank of Canada, Banking Business Vesting Order. Financial Intelligence Authority, Financial Statements March 31st, 2021, March 31st, 2020. Financial Intelligence Authority, Combined Annual Reports 2018 and 2019. Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure 2021-2022. Economic and Social Review 2020. Police Complaints Commission, St. Lucia, Annual Report for the period January to December 2018. Police Complaints, St. Lucia, Annual Report for the period January to December 2019.
Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, responsible for creative industries and culture.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg to lead the following peoples standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 46 of 2021, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Marfa Tire Services Limited, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 47 of 2021, Tourism Incentives, Cicero Management Limited, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 48 of 2021, Tourism Incentives, Jario Management Limited, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 49 of 2021, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Luxury Living Properties, LLP Inc., Order. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Motion.
Madam President, I beg to ask for the suspension of Standing Order 12, Order of Business to allow the National Savings and Development Bonds Act, Resolution of Parliament to raise funds by the issue of savings bonds, to be presented after the Appropriation Bill.
Granted. Bill.
Madam President, I beg to present the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Appropriation Bill 2021-2022.
Appropriation 2021-2022.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Orders 49-2 to enable this bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Honorable Senators, the question is that Standing Order Number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Leader of Government Business to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, the bill for consideration is the Appropriation Bill. The purpose of the bill is to provide for the services of the State of St. Lucia for the year ending on the 31st day of March, 2022. Madam President, the theme for our 41st anniversary of independence in 2020 was "Now is the time. Let's do this together." The theme for our 42nd anniversary of independence this year was "We are a resilient nation. We can and we will." It is amazing, Madam President, how one theme led to another, and to the theme of this budget in a COVID-19 environment: adapting, overcoming, and persevering. We are a resilient nation. Madam President, this bill gives legitimacy to the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the upcoming year 2021-2022 and authorizes the expenditure of government funds as budgeted in the estimates from March 31st, 2021 ending in March 31st, 2022. The approval of this bill in the Senate is necessary, and a similar exercise takes place on an annual basis to legitimize the estimates of revenue and expenditure each year. So, Madam President, while this is necessary, it is not new. This year it has been an extremely daunting task as our country with the rest of the world continue to reel under the strains of the COVID-19 pandemic. For the past few years, Madam President, we have experienced many challenging situations that call on our people to muster all our resilience and determination in order to weather the storms sent our way. The hurricanes, the storms, the troughs we have grown to expect. However, COVID-19 is an unprecedented, catastrophic event that has and continues to test our resolve. We are called upon today to approve $1,638,600,900 Eastern Caribbean dollars for the year 2021 to 2022. This represents total recurrent expenditure in the amount of $1,359,997,100 and capital expenditure in the amount of $278,603,800. The bill further breaks down recurrent expenditure that is statutory as follows. With respect to the Governor General, the sum is $261,770. The Legislature, the sum is $126,162. The Service Commissions, the sum is $126,162. Electoral Department, the sum is $110,576. The Audit Department, the sum is $127,670. Department of Justice, the sum is $312,172. And the Department of Finance, the sum is $391,986,442. The bill also presents a schedule stating the amounts of recurrent and capital expenditure for each government agency, including statutory agencies. Madam President, while it is not the ideal position to be in, where our expenditure is greater than revenue, According to the Economic and Social Review, from 2010 to 2020, the deficit declined during our tenure, with the smallest gap occurring in 2018-2019, prior to the onset of COVID-19. Notwithstanding that the COVID years are outliers, our country enjoyed positive growth and decreased unemployment throughout our tenure. Having to contend with COVID over the last year, this budget is addressing the way forward as we live with COVID. This theme calls for us to adapt, Madam President, and our policies and programs are geared towards just that. From the onset of COVID, we put the necessary protocols, social programs, and infrastructure in place to deal with the pandemic. We instituted curfews, a state of emergency whenever it became necessary, and we imposed restrictions in specific instances. When it became necessary to zone our country, we did so. And with the cooperation of our good citizens, we persevered during this pandemic. We set up the command center, staffed with key personnel, including emergency personnel, and they met at least once a day to assess, analyze, report, and advise the Cabinet of Ministers. Madam President, no country expected the pandemic to last as long as it has. No country expected it to cause as much damage as it is causing. St. Lucia is no exception. Our tourism sector shut down completely as a result of COVID-19, creating hardship and poverty for many of our people as our economy took a devastating downturn. According to the Department of Statistics, Madam President, our economy contracted by 20.4%, while output in the tourism sector declined by 60% last year. The absence of the majestic cruise ships from our shores marked a 65% drop in our tourism arrivals, while according to the Caribbean Tourism Organization, tourist arrivals to the region fell by 65.5%. Madam President, our construction sector came to a standstill during COVID curfew periods, with less strict restrictions on government projects and other special projects under customized and specific protocols at times. Recognizing the crisis created in employment, government initiated pre-planned projects to stimulate the economy and to allow citizens to generate some revenue. Notwithstanding, Madam President, that sector experienced an estimated 9.9% contraction. Madam President, we manage a small-scale economy as a small island developing state, and our productive sectors are interdependent. As such, with a huge decline in the tourism sector, the negative impact was felt throughout the length and breadth of our economy. The manufacturing sector contracted by 10.4%, and agriculture came under immense pressure as the hotels and hospitality sectors shut down, coupled with the perennial challenges faced by our banana exports to the UK. This resulted in a 9.5% contraction in the agricultural industry. With construction and manufacturing sectors functioning at a minimum, Madam President, employment was also created or maintained in the ICT sector, particularly the call centers that were able to remain open with strict protocols, and they also created the avenue for workers to adapt and work from home. Across the region, Madam President, the fiscal situation of countries deteriorated as public expenditure on healthcare and provision of support to workers and businesses through stimulus packages and other forms of assistance increased as government's revenue fell. In many cases, this resulted in increased levels of public debt, emergency loans to provide budgetary support. Of course, Madam President, we here can all recall the struggle to get the necessary approval to borrow additional funds in this House to finance COVID expenditure. Madam President, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, our government instituted the following. We attended regional and international meetings to get updates, information, and education on the pandemic and protocols to establish. We established a command center to analyze, assess, and make recommendations to Cabinet on a regular basis. We engage all stakeholders regularly to update and get input from them, especially those registered with NIMAC. We secured technical support from the government of Cuba to strengthen and assist our local medical personnel, resulting in the addition of 110 doctors and nurses to complement our staff. We secured grant aid from UNDP, Japan, and Republic of China, Taiwan for personal protective equipment and medical equipment and supplies. We established 7 quarantine facilities, including guest houses and hotels for quarantine purposes. We facilitated the initial transition of the OKEU hospital and converted the Victoria Hospital into a respiratory clinic. We expanded our testing and contact tracing capacity. We initiated the rollout of the vaccination program, which to date has enabled 23,257 individuals from our eligible population to receive the first dose of the vaccine, and with the arrival of our first COVAX batch, the second batch has started rolling out. We initiated the dissemination of many information, education, and communication campaigns designed to minimize disinformation and distrust to mobilize collective action and response. Madam President, we persevered. My government instituted the following social programs to assist our people who needed the help the most at the start of this pandemic. The government through NIC provided income support in the amount of $1,500 to about 5,000 non-NIC contributors. This was designed to cover 500 allowance for 3 months per individual, and it resulted in a total expenditure of $7.2 million. This program complemented the economic relief program administered by the NIC to its contributors, in which 11,800 individuals benefit at a cost of $66.5 million during the period April to September 2020. Government distributed agricultural produce packages to over 1,000 vulnerable households island-wide on a weekly basis. Government instituted tax relief measures and deferment of tax filing requirements for individuals and businesses. We increased the level of support provided in respect of foster care, child disability, and persons living with HIV. We rolled out a national feeding program involving the distribution of over 19,000 meals across the island during the early days of the restriction on commercial activity. Under the Education Assistance Program, we provided support for back-to-school expenses, disbursing over $3 million to eligible households in every constituency. Through the Public Assistance Program, a $75 electricity subsidy was introduced to participants in that program. The barrel trade concession to allow households to import or receive food and other items in a non-commercial quantity duty-free was extended from June 2020 to March of 2021. Madam President, our government has designed an economic recovery and resilience plan consisting of 32 interventions under the EERP. The strategies include recovery pillars and resilience pillars. Let me just highlight some of the progress made under this program. We have the provision of blended loan grant support through SLDB to medium, small, and micro enterprises with a focus on food security and adoption of digital technologies. Microfinance loans financed by CDB to households to diversify into small and micro enterprise cottage industries. Implementation of the Electricity Assistance Program, which I mentioned before, for persons adversely affected by COVID. The implementation of shovel-ready projects such as the St. Jude Hospital, the Respiratory Hospital, the lane expansion in Rodney Bay, and other selected ongoing road projects across the island, all designed to encourage employment to our people. The St. Lucia's Public Assistance Program has been expanded, Madam President, by 1,000 households from 2,600 to 3,600, in addition to increased funding for the program. The waiver of duties for the purchase of vehicles for taxi operators, minibus operators, and waiver of route permit license renewal fees for minibus operators and permit holders. Acceleration of services at the Department Control Authority, provision of duty-free consensus on vehicles to essential service public sector workers. Currently, Madam President, we have had 275 approved applications where our public workers are able to access this duty-free concession to purchase vehicles for their day-to-day work activities. The provision of waiver of duties on personal hygiene products and distribution of COVID-19 hygiene care packages to indigent, poor, and vulnerable households. Some of the resilience strategies employed, Madam President. In 2020, the government launched its digital integrated government e-service platform designed to provide a central online gateway to government information services. It is expected that the Human Capital Resilience Project and the generation of employment through the private sector development project will be initiated. The transition of Victoria Hospital into a full-fledged respiratory hospital is one of the measures aimed at mainstreaming care for long-term management of COVID-19 patients. We have continued, Madam President, to target purchases of PPEs, as well as the initial rollout of vaccines to prevent loss of life and to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The PAHO HATS pilot program, administered at 6 primary wellness centers, resulted in successful recording hypertension as of March 31st at 66% points higher than the projected target for that period. So we are doing well, Madam President, we are on track. Government was able to provide 472 water tanks under the DPRP project supported by World Bank. Tanks were allocated to farmers, faith-based organizations, and NEMO, to name a few of the recipients of those tanks. Madam President, it is expected that during this financial year, we can expect to see the rollout of the following programs. Provision of incentives to the commercial banking sector to lend to medium, small, and micro enterprises. The waiver of commercial property tax to landlords who extended moratorium or rent reductions to their tenants. The exemptions from tax for severance and redundancy pay. And the employee retention program, which grants tax relief to qualifying businesses. Madam President, our education system had to quickly adapt to ICT in order to continue to teach our children from home while they were not able to attend school. In order to accommodate e-learning, Madam President, over 8,000 students and teachers at the secondary level had to gain access to learning devices. Over 1,000 teachers were initially trained in the use of these technologies. Madam President, through grant funding from the Republic of China, Taiwan, smart classrooms were established in 5 primary schools and 3 secondary schools. These classrooms are furnished with interactive equipment and devices that will facilitate the integration of technology. Madam President, schools also had to be rehabilitated in order to upgrade the facilities to create healthy and safe spaces for students and teachers by improving the plumbing and water supply systems and establishing new hand washing stations. We are not saying that this is enough, Madam President. However, Rome was not built in a day. Madam President, I want to recognize our Minister of Agriculture and his ministry's contribution to the livestock sector with the establishment of the livestock station at Bola in Miku, which is near completion. This is a much welcome addition to our livestock infrastructure, as it will enable local livestock farmers to produce a significant proportion of the livestock needs of this country, thereby reducing our food import bill and increasing our food security. Also under agriculture, we completed a national diagnostic facility at Union, and the facility referred to as the old IRD in Lakai Dennery has now been converted to a ripening facility for bananas. Again, Madam President, it is not just talk about bananas. It is what is being done to support and sustain the industry. And through the Banana Productivity Improvement Project, Madam President, we are seeing more emphasis being placed on sustaining the banana industry. The Ministry of Agriculture also provides continuous training for farmers and extension officers, workshops and other initiatives including farmer markets, sale of inputs at subsidized prices, new crop variety trials, and the assurance that farmers have access to the St. Lucia Marketing Board to sell their produce. Madam President, in the area of ICT, I wish to point out that Ojo Labs and ITEL Pro continue to employ our young people and create employment to the tune of 420 people at Ojo Labs, 550 at ITEL Pro to date, with additional jobs on the way. Madam President, in spite of the negative effects of the pandemic, we have experienced an increase in our export market to other islands in the region, particularly animal feed being exported to Barbados. We have also seen the development of condiments being exported to Russia, an unprecedented event in our history. Madam President, we have often heard the complaints about our CIP program. Let me assure you that with the establishment of the National Economic Fund and the establishment of CIP legislation, 28.4 million has been allocated in that fund, and projections for the upcoming years look very lucrative. From the onset of COVID-19, Madam President, to date, the whole world has focused on the pandemic. At the Ministry of Health, coupled with the pandemic, we have to continue to focus on all other programs pertaining to healthcare and saving lives and livelihoods. Madam President, we have persevered. We have had to adapt in quick time, and our ability as a resilient people have enabled us to overcome at the Ministry of Health. So today, it gives me great pleasure to stand here and applaud the workers in the healthcare sector, particularly the health workers at the Ministry of Health, whom we seldom see. Madam President, the success of our past programs in health continue to manifest through the demographic transition. The gains made in keeping communicable diseases at bay have led to increasing life expectancy and an aging population coupled with fertility rates that continue to remain below replacement levels since 2015. This demographic transition continues to bear pressure on the dependency ratio as the productive population base has to support a larger and older population. Congruent with the demographic changes, Madam President, chronic non-communicable diseases continue to dominate the principal causes of death. Our 5 leading causes of death in St. Lucia are malignant neoplasm, cancers, cerebrovascular diseases represent 12% of total deaths, heart diseases account for 11%, diabetes account for 9%, hypertensive heart diseases represent 6% of total deaths. These are our 5 leading causes of death in St. Lucia. Madam President, the health sector continues to combat new and emerging diseases such as chikungunya, Zika, and now COVID. The COVID-19 pandemic has placed severe strain on the health system, forcing the diversion of large amount of resources into responding to this highly infectious virus. Vector-borne diseases like leptospirosis and dengue also continue to be an issue as infections in more recent times continue to remain higher than that of previous years. AIDS-related mortality rate has remained constant, with males continuing to account for larger proportions of death. The island continues to record 0 cases of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. That is quite a performance and an accomplishment, Madam President. Worldwide, that is. St. Lucia is one of the few countries that has been able to accomplish this task. The trends in respiratory tract infections remains on the increase as the island recorded the first H1N1 influenza death in March of 2019 and our first case of COVID in March of 2020. Coverage for vaccine-preventable diseases remain at the recommended 95% and up. So, Madam President, as we unroll the COVID-19 vaccine, it is not new to our country. Vaccination is not new to our country. We have at least 95% coverage of other vaccines in St. Lucia. Active searches for individuals who have missed scheduled visits are ongoing in an attempt to ensure full protection against all vaccine-preventable diseases, including measles. To date, Madam President, St. Lucia has not confirmed any case of measles, despite regional and international threats. Madam President, the Department of Health and Wellness continues to focus on healthy aging and positive health outcomes throughout the life cycle by ensuring equitable access to quality and comprehensive health services. These include ensuring the health of mothers and newborns given the low levels of fertility, addressing risk factors for chronic non-communicable diseases in an effort to improve the quality of life and reduce premature mortality, the early detection and control of new and emerging communicable diseases. This is being done through a health system strengthening approach using the following health system building blocks: service delivery, health workforce, health information, essential medicines, health system financing, leadership and governments, and finally, quality. Quality to ensure that healthcare is safe, effective, patient-centered, timely, efficient, and equitable. Madam President, the Department of Health strategic direction has not been in isolation of the government of St. Lucia's medium to long-term strategy. As such, there is a keen focus on ensuring that healthcare is universally accessible, affordable, equitable, and sustainable, as well as offered at the highest international quality for our population. Under this 2021-2022 budget, this includes improving physical and economic access and improving health and wellness. It is also in keeping with the government's long-term objectives of economic growth and diversification, as well as promotion of foreign and local investments. This is being done through the following health sector drivers, Madam President: the design and implementation of a national health insurance program, strengthening of primary and public health through investment in infrastructure, human resources, and expansion of services, the development of chronic non-communicable diseases policy, strengthened health security by applying public health measures to reduce health risk associated with international travel and trade, implementation of a quality assurance framework through the execution of quality policy and adoption of ISO 9001, upgrade and operationalization of secondary and tertiary institutions and associated services. Madam President, a key policy driver for 2020-2021 is the initiative to establish and deliver health services under a national insurance framework. The Department of Health and Wellness will continue to work on the implementation of the National Insurance Program, with the key achievements over the period to include, but is not limited to, the following. 1, the definition of a first phase of the essential package of health services. 2, stakeholder consultation on the proposed model of coverage and the contents of the essential package of health services, which include the insurance companies, trade unions, medical and dental association, nurses association, representatives from the fisher folks, minibus drivers, just to name a few. The consultations are almost concluding and is expected to continue through the first few months of this budget cycle. The drafting of the terms of reference for provision of health insurance, which was sent to the different insurance companies for submission of proposals. This is currently in progress. Discussions with the Department of Equity for use of the current framework to assist with the registration of the population, establishment of the requirements of a management information system that will integrate the information systems of health service providers and insurers so as to manage the delivery of care and claims process within the NHI framework. Madam President, the World Health Organization has indicated that climate change poses an urgent and pressing threat to global public health, and overall health effects of a changing climate are likely to overwhelmingly impact public health negatively. Climate change affects both the social and environmental determinants of health: clean air, access to safe drinking water, nutritious food production, and safe shelter, all of which are basic elements of everyday life with devastating effects on human health. With small island developing states like St. Lucia and most of the Caribbean, we contribute the least to climate change. We are likely to suffer the most from its adverse effects. Countries such as ours are uniquely vulnerable due to its geographic location, size, and its development status, increasing its vulnerability to disasters, natural and man-made, and health epidemics. A key function of the health sector is the ability to mobilize and continuity of services immediately following an adverse event. To do that, Madam President, we must therefore ensure that we build resilience in health facilities to withstand severe weather conditions and are also designed to adequately address health needs. Climate conditions strongly affect waterborne diseases and diseases transmitted through vectors such as mosquitoes. Changing weather patterns have shortened the breeding cycles and lengthened the transmission seasons, causing the control and management of diseases such as dengue, Zika, chikungunya to be extremely challenging for the health sector. St. Lucia recorded outbreaks of chikungunya and Zika in 2014 and 2016 respectively. It is with these in mind, Madam President, that the Department of Health has to date initiated more adaptive strategies. Some of these strategies include smarting of 15 facilities through the PAHO DFID funded project, securing funding under the World Bank OECS project to further smart an additional 14 public health facilities, increase water storage capacity and rainwater harvesting at health facilities, promoting the use of solar energy through the installation of solar heating systems at selected facilities such as OKEU. We have been actively participating in internal forums, securing funding to assist with the development of the strategic policies and complementary actions to chart the way forward to mitigate and create a more adaptive, resilient health sector. These include Green Climate Fund, UNFCCC, EU CARI Forum, PAHO, to name a few. We have completed St. Lucia's Health and Climate Change Country Profile. This is a small island developing states project supported by World Health Organization and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change to provide policy makers with country-specific information on the impact of climate change on health. We are exploring with regional agencies and the Department of Sustainable Development in order to strengthen health climate rationale by linking epidemiological surveillance, epidemiological surveillance such as vector-borne diseases and respiratory diseases to climate change patterns. Madam President, the main thrust of the government of St. Lucia's health reform agenda is to improve access, physical and economical, to health services for the entire population, regardless of anyone's inability to pay. This main strategy has been the catalyst for a number of interventions aimed at promoting equity, reducing poverty, and protecting the most vulnerable population of St. Lucia. Social protection efforts are key to the improvements of success to health services and eliminating out-of-pocket payments. The department shall work to ensure that health facilities are fully equipped with the necessary infrastructure and adequate staff numbers and competencies to deliver the type of quality care services needed. Madam President, our government's commitment to improve physical and economic access to health services was reconfirmed in the recently developed St. Lucia Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan, in which its 6 pillars include protecting the poor and most vulnerable segments of our population and mitigate further deterioration in the quality of life, and 2, strengthen the health system to respond to viral outbreaks, improving the health resilience of the St. Lucian population. Stemming from this, the Department of Health shall strive to prioritize and undertake actions that have been identified to safeguard lives and livelihoods and to build a more secure future for St. Lucia. While the majority of the social protection strategies reside with the Ministry of Equity, the Department of Health undertakes the important role health contributes to well-being. Madam President, while we have focused on the main health strategies outlined above, As I have outlined, the ministry remains a present implementation partner to NGOs and other government agencies, such as the Department of Education, where we collaborate closely on school health education program, school feeding program, and support to gender mainstreaming and gender-based violence. Department of Equity on the National Social Protection Strategies and Assessments. Department of Economic Development on nation building, health infrastructure, and social participation actions and implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Madam President, addressing communicable and non-communicable diseases in an effective manner requires focus on primary health care, which meets the needs of the population through the provision of a comprehensive range of promotive, preventative, curative, rehabilitative, and palliative healthcare services. This also involves empowering individuals, families, and communities to be more responsible for their health. Strengthening primary health care, Madam President, is also essential for the implementation of the National Health Insurance. The Department of Health and Wellness, working collaboratively with the Ministry of Economic Development under the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project, has facilitated the design of and commencement construction of 2 new health facilities, the Denry Polyclinic and the Miku Wellness Center. Additionally, the government of St. Lucia was able to secure financing for a new ancillary wellness center under the NIPRO Build, Own, Lease and Transfer Agreement. It should be noted that both facilities are scheduled to be completed and commissioned within 2021. One of the main medium-term strategies of the government of St. Lucia is to provide physical access to healthcare services. One of the main achievements in this area over the past year was the transition of the Victoria Hospital into the Owen King Hospital. The move was expedited to make the old Victoria Hospital plant available to prepare for the respiratory hospital. The move was successful, however. There are still issues with the Owen King Hospital plant, which requires continuous work. Over the past year, Madam President, work has been ongoing with the laundry, the electrical system, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and the plumbing systems. Also, given the reduced number of beds at Owen King Hospital, additional bed space is being worked on at the St. Lucia National Mental Wellness Center. Over the past 5 years, Madam President, the government of St. Lucia has also been instrumental in assisting the St. Jude Hospital in the creation of additional dialysis capacity through the procurement of additional dialysis chairs. St. Jude Hospital has also been assisted in procurement and operationalization of an oxygen plant that can provide sufficient oxygen to all public health facilities on island. Madam President, on January 7, 2020, we all know that the WHO announced the identification of a novel coronavirus, COVID-2019 nCoV, responsible for the outbreak of strange cases of pneumonia in Wuhan. By January 13th, Madam President, WHO proclaimed a public health matter of international concern with reference to the coronavirus. On March 11th, the virus was proclaimed an international pandemic, as well as St. Lucia experiencing its first imported case. Consequently, Madam President, the Department of Health worked collaboratively with local institutions, St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, Immigration, St. Lucia Fire Service, Customs and Excise, Royal St. Lucia Police Force, and the tourism sector, amongst others, to establish and implement the novel coronavirus preparedness, prevention, and response plan, PPRP. This intervention would focus on the prevention and reduction of COVID-related morbidity and mortality in St. Lucia through capacity building in community and social mobilization, surveillance systems, case identification and diagnosis, exposure and case management, strengthening international health regulations, IHR, program management, and medical supplies. Over the past year, Madam President, the government has been challenged with responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Given the highly infectious nature of the virus, the Department of Health and Wellness has had to respond in a specific manner, which has been guided by the 2019 Novel Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Plan. Throughout 2020, the COVID-19 numbers remained manageable. However, towards the end of 2020, October, there was an upward trend in the number of positive patients, and then increasing exponentially in January and February of 2021. The establishment of the quarantine centers. As a result, Madam President, it became necessary to establish quarantine centers to manage persons coming in from high-risk areas. We established Victoria Hospital as the respiratory hospital. We increased capacity at Ezra Long Lab to test for COVID-19, and that included the purchase of PCR machine and consumables. We purchased electronic tracing watches for persons who may be required to home quarantine. We relocated the Cuban Eye Clinic and the STI Clinic to facilitate the rehabilitation of Victoria Hospital as a respiratory hospital. We purchased protective equipment for use at the health facilities and equipment for the respiratory hospital. We augmented local health workers with the Cuban Medical Brigade, and this included flying in the medical brigade as well as providing for their care, upkeep, and accommodation. Setting up of health screening facilities at the airport to allow for screening of persons coming into St. Lucia. And we had to set up different wellness centers, including Grosile Polyclinic, Denry Hospital, to serve as respiratory clinics. Madam President, we have often heard the call to establish the cost to COVID-19 activities. Madam President, in addition to unbudgeted expenditure for COVID-19, as recently as March 2021, $10 million had to be added to the budget for COVID response. This will be used, Madam President, to augment the budget to cover outstanding payments for quarantine, for respiratory hospital civil works, the rehabilitation of Castries Wellness Center, among other activities. Madam President, the government of St. Lucia has also sourced 13 million euros to assist with the COVID response, which will include the setting up of 2 isolation units, one in the north and one in the south of the island, as well as improving the physical capacity of the Ezra Long Laboratory by a build-out for blood bank and serology department. This source of funding will also include the rehabilitation of the extra warehouse space for central procurement, thereby increasing the capacity for storage of personal protective equipment and pharmaceuticals. The complete proposed project activities, Madam President, totals $46.1 million. Underpinning our capital program implementation, Madam President, is the emphasis on the health system strengthening approach. Through our capital program, we shall ensure that healthcare services are relevant, sufficient, and available to all. Moreover, it shall seek to guarantee that the appropriate professionals are well-trained and available in sufficient numbers to offer a quality product to the population based on their required needs. As such, Madam President, this shall also include equitable access to essential medication, products and technologies in an environment that is safe, effective, and patient-centered. For 2021-2022, Madam President, the department shall focus its efforts on dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, especially the mechanism to deliver on the national health insurance and continue to upgrade and operationalize secondary and tertiary institutions. These capital projects, Madam President, include, but they are not exhaustive, emergency response for COVID-19. The budget is $41.1 million, and that funding is coming from World Bank and the development policy credit. Health system strengthening project, Madam President, that's a budget of $8.8 million, and that again is funded by World Bank IDA. The OECS Regional Health Project with a budget of $2.67 million, funded by World Bank. The new National Hospital Commissioning, the budget, $12,985,000. Construction of Denry Polyclinic with a budget of $18 million, funded by World Bank. Construction of Miku Wellness Center with a budget of 1.2 million. That's US, Madam President. 3.2 million EC funded by World Bank. Rehabilitation of Soufriere Hospital, $5.6 million, again funded by World Bank. We have the World Bank Health System Strengthening Project at $20 million US over a 4-year period. And the World Bank OECS Regional Project at $6 million.
You have 15 more minutes.
Yes, please, Madam President.
Madam President, I beg for suspension. I beg to suspend Standing Order 35-3 to allow the Senator or the Leader of Government Business an additional 30 minutes.
Senators, the question is that Order 35-3 be suspended to allow the Leader of Government Business another 35 minutes. And I'll put the question: as many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, fellow Senator. And of course, electrical works to Soufriere Hospital was conducted at $147,000, and that was done from funding from the government of St. Lucia. Improvements were done on primary care, and that include the Grosile Polyclinic, extended hours. The extended hours, Madam President, include Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays from 8 a.m. to 12 midnight. And that's to increase the primary healthcare services and reduce the burden on the Accident and Emergency Department, A&E, on the lab and outpatient clinics at the new National Hospital. Also to ensure continuity of care from community to hospital and back to community. The construction of the Ancillary Wellness Center. This project is a build, own, lease, and transfer agreement between Government of St. Lucia and NIPRO. Rehabilitation of works on the Mental Wellness Center to ensure safe working and living environments for clients and workers in the provision of healthcare services. Madam President, in direct response to COVID-19, the Victoria Hospital was rehabilitated into a respiratory hospital. The Cuban Eye program had to be relocated to Castries Wellness Center. An additional space had to be created to accommodate the sexually transmitted infection clinic previously located at VH, that is now located at the Castries Wellness Center. Madam President, we have also received assistance from Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, to strengthen St. Lucia's risk communication for COVID-19. They supplied much needed PPE for our frontline workers and provided support to combat dengue fever. As you know, during this COVID pandemic, we had quite a serious outbreak of dengue fever. Madam President, our Prime Minister has pointed out the anomaly presented by COVID-19 for the 2020, 2021, and 2021-2022 financial years. While the projections are based on the expectation that the economy will recover, though slowly in the next few years, our current fiscal position is a true reflection of the results of the pandemic. Projected revenue and grants for the fiscal year 2021-22 are estimated at $1.12 billion, a 21.3% increase over the revised estimate for 2021-2022. But it is still lower than 2018-2019 and 2019-2022. So clearly you can see that COVID had a very significant impact on our revenue collection for those 2 periods, including the period in question. Similarly, Madam President, in most countries, particularly small island states dependent on tourism in our region, we have all suffered similar fate with our economic indicators being negatively impacted by COVID. Madam President, our projected expenditure for 2021-22 is at $1.639 billion. This represents a 6.8% increase over the projections for fiscal year 2020-2021 and a 7.4% increase over the estimate for 1920. Recurrent expenditure is estimated at $1.36 billion. Meanwhile, capital expenditure is estimated at $278.6 million. Madam President, while COVID-19 has created a financial burden for most countries, and it has had a devastating impact on our finances, our government has made salaries and debt service payment a priority, given much needed assurance to our workers in the public sector. That assurance redounds to economic benefits in all sectors in our society. Madam President, our government has taken deliberate steps prior to COVID to ensure that our fiscal deficit is addressed. Prior to COVID, Madam President, for every expenditure item, there was a revenue stream created. The intention, Madam President, was to reduce on borrowing and gradually close the deficit gap in the medium term. Currently, Madam President, our deficit for this budget stands at $232,491,500 and an overall financing gap and deficit of $383 million, or an estimated 7.9% of GDP. Therefore, as we start the process of economic recovery, we must develop fiscal policies to strengthen our financial situation and reduce on the deficit. Madam President, our fiscal position makes it imperative that we continue to follow the COVID-19 protocols and continue the vaccine rollout so that we can fully reopen our economy. We are a resilient people, Madam President. We can and we will. Madam President, our government has rolled out many incentives and tax breaks over the past few years. Many of these breaks came during the COVID-19 pandemic to provide some level of relief to our people. But, Madam President, there is no free lunch. And while we enjoy the tax breaks and the concessions, which are geared towards incentivizing different sectors in our society, we must also understand that we have a country and an economy to rebuild. And rebuilding back that economy is what will bring us financial freedom. Madam President, the finance for this 2020-2021 budget will be allocated as follows. Recurrent revenue $1.001 billion, comprising of $909 million in tax revenue and $92.69 million in non-tax revenue. Grants amounting to $121.26 million from friendly governments and multilateral agencies. Capital revenue from the sale of assets amounting to $6.4 million. Government instruments including bonds and treasury bills in the amount of $240.86 million. Other loans totaling $268.72 million from various regional and international financial institutions. Consequently, Madam President, the allocations in the 2021-22 budget will be allocated as follows. The economic and productive sectors will receive $889.05 million, with $682.05 expense on recurrent expenditure programs, while $207 million will be allocated to capital expenditure programs. Ministry of Finance programs usually carry the largest purse, with an allocation of $501.02 million this year to service wages, salaries, debt service, and payments for goods and services. However, we know how essential social programs are, and especially during this oppressive pandemic. So as such, depots will be larger than that of finance this budget year, with an increase in the allocation amounting to $519.67 million. Madam President, these have been challenging times for our people and our country. I have no doubt that this budget will have some challenges, but none as unsurmountable and catastrophic as COVID-19. Madam President, I know that we are expected to cover the entire estimates of revenue and expenditure. However, given time constraints, I believe that we in this House try to do our best to focus on the main issues at hand. And I believe today, the main issue for us and for the entire world is COVID-19. And this is why I place so much emphasis and focus on COVID-19. Madam President, what I have presented here today, most of it can be expanded on and substantiated with a report from the Ministry of Health to indicate where every penny that was borrowed was spent. So I invite my fellow senators, if they so wish, to get a copy of that report, which I have. I can make it a copy for the House, so that they can get a full explanation and account of what was spent on COVID-19. Finally, Madam President, as I present this bill for approval of this Honorable House, I know that we are a resilient people, and I know that we can rise again, and by God's grace, our economy will realize growth again. Madam President, I present this bill for approval of my fellow senators and the Honorable Senate. I thank you.
Leader of Opposition Business. Honorable Senators, the question is that the Appropriation 2021-2022 bill be read a second time. Honorable Leader of Opposition Business.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, fellow colleagues, senators. Madam President, before I proceed, I want to join you in extending sincere condolences to our former colleague senator and former leader of opposition business, Joachim Henry, on the passing of his dear son. I wish him all the courage that there is as a parent losing a child. I also want to wish Senator Francis, Honorable Minister, who is unwell, and I think Senator Mauricia Francis, I believe she's she's out. I want to wish her well as well. And I also want to spare a thought for our neighbors in St. Vincent and the Grenadines dealing with the volcanic activity. Being from the south, we have also seen evidence of the destruction in the form of the ash, and so I wish them well as a sister island. Madam President, this morning we have heard the leader of government business make a presentation on the Appropriations Bill 2020-2021. And we have had quite a bit to reflect upon in the last few weeks and few days leading up to the presentation of this bill. And today, as we respond as an opposition, we need to pay attention first of all to the issues that are confronting us at this time, the issues that are confronting the country, the challenges that are before us, particularly COVID, as the leader of government business correctly pointed out, and how this bill, how this appropriations bill, how this budget responds to these issues. How does it respond to the realities ahead of us? And so, in my deliberations, I hope to look at what is presented to us, both from the Prime Minister's budget address as well as what has been presented by the leader of government business, and see to what extent, if it does speak to and appropriately address the serious realities and challenges that confront us as a country. Madam President, some of these top priorities, I would think all of us might want to agree, would include COVID, and by extension the health sector, education, the economy, and food security. And these would probably encapsulate other areas that we would probably refer to along the way. So, Madam President, the essential question this morning as we discuss and engage in this debate is, how does this appropriations bill, how does this budget respond or address these issues? So the context is clear, Madam President. As a country, we can agree, and I think, again, the leader of government business mentioned, that we have been experiencing some challenges and there has been negative growth in the last fiscal year. And so we know the state of the economy is not at its best. We all know why this is so, Madam President. It's no one's fault. Although we could have been in a better situation when COVID came along, but we will agree that currently the country has just faced a year where there was negative growth. And so, in a budget or in an appropriations bill, you would expect that the realities will suggest that the government, in its projections, in its announcements, will be considerate and will look at areas that are critical and are priority. But what we notice, Madam President, is that some of the financing sources that were outlined by the Prime Minister as well as leader of government business as late as this morning suggest that the government intends to finance a significant percentage of its budget, or quite a good sum, of its budget through grants. I think she mentioned about 120 million or so the government projects will be used. Madam President, let us be realistic. These figures are always flattering, but if we can just make a reference to the last financial year, the government projected 106 million in grants, but was only able to access 31 million, as reflected on page Roman numeral 4 of the estimates. I am sure that we would have liked to have received more, but the reality is, out of a projected $106 million in grants, we only received 31 million, and much of that was not negotiated only then. It had been negotiated, some of it, even while the Labour Party was in government previously. So it means that some of these monies were made available over a period. It took about a 5-year period for the government to access these monies. Yet, we are having a new projection in this fiscal year of 120 million, or over 120 million. And if we have to look at the percentage, less than 1/3 of the projections, the projected amounts, were received. So I think it is a little bit unrealistic for us to expect to raise those monies with such expectations in a COVID environment when most countries around the world are not so inclined to give grants to other countries as was the case before. We are not the only country with COVID. Everybody is guarding what they have because everybody is facing the reality. So when we have these huge projections, even in a COVID environment, I would think that if the projection was 106 million in the last fiscal year, it ought to have been at even lower this year because we know that these grants aren't coming as we see. But again, I don't know what the government will use to justify that projection. Madam President, I believe that when you present certain proposals to the electorate and to the parliament, there needs to be ways or at least semblances of ways you can justify what you project. Unlike what we saw with St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who I referred to earlier, struggling with the volcanic issue situation, they too were hit by COVID, but what they did to cushion the blow was to make some adjustments in the agricultural sector, and through that type of management, it was able to help cushion the blow to the tourist industry. Now, we also took a blow, but I must say, Madam President, we didn't see a similar approach. And so, while there was a heavy focus on tourism during that time, the expected revenue that we were looking at, we did not receive. And so, while the entire region experienced the same issues we had, in terms of the way we managed it, I think we could have done a lot better, especially in the way we subsidized and tried to use and work with the agricultural sector and other sectors that could have supported our main income, foreign exchange or foreign income earner, which is tourism. And so, Madam President, I move to tourism, and I ask, for example, whether this sector that is already under immense pressure with reduced airlifts and arrivals, whether what I see in the Appropriations Bill and in the estimate, with all these renderings for the international airport, Uranora International Airport, are realistic at this time. I put that in the same context that I started, Madam President. When you're dealing with crises and you have restrictions and difficulties with raising money, whatever monies you have need to be directed, priorities need to be made so that these monies are used for the most necessary and important reasons. And so we see no adjustment, we see no pullback when it comes to that investment. Now, while we're doing so, Madam President, we have an issue that we must observe. You have an international airport that is supposed to provide emergency medical services. So anywhere you have an international airport, you expect there to be proper health care facilities like a hospital. But the St. Jude Hospital, which is right within the same area with the airport, where is it? Madam President, it is incomplete. And I will get back to the St. Jude Hospital a little later. So you have no matching quality healthcare facility for that investment that you're making in an international airport at this time. Madam President, still in tourism, I want to ask the government, where are the hotels that were promised over the last 5 years? Where are they? And we are now presenting a new bill, Appropriations Bill. We are on the verge of elections, and the people, particularly of the South, are waiting for these hotels. Madam President, one of the very important aspects of tourism that I think everyone inside of this room will appreciate, particularly those of us who do not live in the city or in the urban areas, would be village tourism. And we understand the importance of village tourism in what it brings to people who do not access most of the services that, or the benefits that the regular mainstream tourist attractions or tourist activity bring. And I want to draw your attention, Madam President, to the area where I live, which happens to be a rural community. In the last fiscal year and in this budget, Madam President, I still have not seen any allocation or mention of any initiative that speaks to, in a serious way, addressing that issue of village tourism. You may not know the community very well, Madam President, but the entrance to the rainforest that leads you from the center of the country to Foncé-Jacques-Souffré is called the Descartier Trail that is going past Blasha. And there is so much potential. That's an area where my family used to have their agricultural activity. And there is so much potential in there. But there is no semblance of any development in that regard. If you come closer down to the East Coast, Madam President, near the main road, there is also an area called Angers where there is a good, rich history of Amerindian artifacts, caves, waterfalls, and some very important natural attractions that need attention and can be used, especially in these times, to redirect the financial benefits of the tourist industry. But in this budget, Madam President, I use the example where I am from because I'm very familiar with it. And I think other parts of the country, I'm sure every member in here can relate to that. We can think of several of these areas where that can be explored. And yet, there is very little mention of it in this budget speech by the Prime Minister or the Appropriations Bill. Madam President, the health sector, I think, has taken a serious blow in the last year and a half, and I think all of us will agree. But when we examine what is presented in this bill, we need to ask whether the indicators that we need to give us some level of comfort, particularly with achieving herd immunity with the prevalence of COVID, which is somewhere about 70%, whether there is enough in this appropriations bill, in this budget, to suggest that there is a serious move in that direction. We need to try to achieve that as soon as possible because COVID still remains a serious threat to us in this country. Now, we were presented with several opportunities when we were hit with the pandemic, where we got concessionary rates to borrow money, 0.1%, in some cases 0%, from several different lending agencies. And the government definitely took advantage of several of those loans. So, Madam President, I was happy to hear mention of a report by the Leader of Government Business that will account for the expenditure on COVID. I am surprised that I'm only hearing about it today because we've been asking about this for a while. I am wondering why that was not made available to the lower house as well. So in light of having not seen that report, I will ask the question that the monies that we borrowed, quite a few millions, on behalf or in the name of COVID, the country needs to know how it was spent, how much was actually spent on COVID-related matters, and what were the priorities. So let's not, I don't take too much comfort in hearing about the report right now, but I would have liked to have had that report before so I could have analyzed it and make an informed comment this morning as I made my presentation. Madam President, I'm still on the issue of COVID and health. We know that there was the circumstances that we found ourselves in regarding our primary healthcare, our premier healthcare facility in the south, was as a result of a fire that destroyed the St. Jude Hospital. To date, the Labour Party government presided over this St. Jude Hospital reconstruction for just under 5 years. The United Workers' Party administration prevailed over this same reconstruction project from the time the fire occurred, 2 years in the previous term, and for the entire 5-year term in this current term. So it would be fair to say that one administration has presided over St. Jude reconstruction for 5 years, while the other, the one for 5 is the Labour Party, while the United Workers' Party government has presided for 7 years. And while there is an argument about who did what and what should have happened, I think it is an indictment that this hospital reconstruction situation is where it is as we speak. And I think the COVID situation has further exacerbated this issue, and the country was given certain assurances. And at this stage, I'm from the south. It is the premier health facility that I have to go to, that my family has to go to. And we are in a state where up to now, as we speak, we have no clear indication of when this facility will be delivered to the people of the south. That is the reality. And I am not going to go into the business of how many audits were done and all of those things. That discussion has been exhausted. The fact remains, Madam President, as I speak today, Tuesday, 20th April 2021, there is no completed St. Jude Hospital facility in the south of the island. And that, to me, is an indictment. And the government in office needs to take some responsibility and own up. Madam President, another very popular talking point on health that I did not hear much mention of in this budget was the highly spoken of health insurance package that the Prime Minister so fondly and referred to so many times before. What has happened to the health insurance packages that were promised to St. Lucians? I know we had a national insurance UHC program ongoing. That seemed to have gone, I don't know where, but what happened to the health insurance package? I think St. Lucians are very interested in that at this time. Now we are told, Madam President, that 11 million will be spent on public assistance in this fiscal year, in this financial year. And we appreciate that in St. Lucia we have a situation where we have the most deaths, unfortunately. Even if you put in the entire OECS together, we still have more. So, Madam President, in a situation like this, I think we need to be mindful that families are not only dealing with the economic situation, they are dealing with the emotional backlash that comes with losing loved ones. And the type of support we provide needs to be carefully examined, particularly psychological and emotional support. Madam President, out of the 65, I listened to the Prime Minister's presentation, and $65 million was or were allocated for consultancies under health, but 11 million to be spent on public assistance. Madam President, you do the math. In a situation like this, if I was the one making that decision, it would have been the reverse. Because people's immediate needs come first. I'm sure we're familiar with the Maslow theory. Your immediate needs, your basic needs come first. Other things can complement that. But consultancies, Madam President, seem to have accounted for more than 6 times the amount that is allocated for public assistance. Madam President, allow me to move to agriculture, which earlier on I mentioned as one of the main areas that I believe this budget should focus on and should address. We understand the threat that is posed to food security, particularly in a situation where there are restrictions on what can be done in the country. Our farmers struggle to keep up with what they need to do on their farms. There were lots of protocols that restricted people from moving and so on. At this time, you expect that the government, like our neighbors in St. Vincent, would have made a deliberate attempt to push this industry and to give as much relief and assistance and incentives as possible to our farmers and those in the agriculture industry. So, Madam President, I ask, therefore, about income support for farmers. Where is it? What is it we're telling them? Because they contribute significantly to the local economy, and they also suffer. I come from a farming community where more than half of the persons who make a living, they depend seriously on agriculture to live. But I don't think they can speak of any incentive or any serious assistance coming their way. Madam President, what about the fishers? Again, they still have to pay the $1.50 on the gas tax, even in a situation where, and now, Madam President, with the activity in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the fishers from the south will tell you that they have been seriously affected. Some of them could not go out to get a catch. Yet, there is no alternative. There is nothing in place to help them cushion the impact of already we have COVID, and now we have a threat where they figure, well, not figure, but they are very well guarded when it comes to going out there. But yet, I have not heard an announcement regarding this. And one thing I think generally that I have not noticed, Madam President, although it was late in the set, but this activity in St. Vincent has implications for us. And our government needs to take stock of that and be proactive rather than wait for something to happen and then we're running all over the place like headless chickens. Madam President, the plan on how the agricultural sector can support the tourism product, I still await that plan. I still await that plan. Madam President, markets for bananas. That was mentioned, the famous France and Martinique markets. I still await for the farmers from Dereso, Blasha, Racouville, Tirocher, Diga, and so on, who seriously depend on that industry, to know where they are going to be selling their crop. Madam President, as we would have found out some time ago, Windfresh went through some serious challenges and there was a liquidation of the organization. And so there's more anxiety on our banana farmers because the main organization that dealt with the finance and management of their business has gone into liquidation. What about them? The shareholders and the board members may have collected their gratuities and so on, but what about the farmers? They were the main stakeholders in that situation. and they've been left high and dry. There's nobody to plead on their behalf. So, Madam President, if we have those challenges and there's no indication in the budget as to how the government intends to use the agricultural sector to support and give some balance to the challenges that we're facing with the difficulties with the arrivals in tourism, then where do we turn to? So, I want to quickly, before I move on, Madam President, quote from the Prime Minister's address. I think it's on page 73. Yes, it is. What he said regarding the situation with the farmers. And I quote, "We will continue," page 73, quote, "we will continue to work with farmers, fisherfolk, and other stakeholders within the agricultural sector to develop programs to increase yields, diversify crops, and secure a local market for produce and livestock," end of quote. Madam President, that sounds very nice. But what is the action that matches that statement? Based on what was mentioned, I waited to hear how that statement would have been backed up. I have not heard it yet, but what I can tell you is that while this beautiful statement is being made, the meat processing plant at Beausejour, I don't know where it's gone, what's happened to it. And I think I heard mention of I think it was some livestock station, I think it was, in Miku. A livestock station, a meat processing plant that was a gift to us. Madam President, that was abandoned in favor of a dead horse called DSH. So that also seemed to have gone very quiet these days. And now, it seems that the alternative is some mention of a livestock station somewhere in Miku. Madam President, I think the people of the South, you know, they know what's happening. They had their expectations raised sky high, and now they can see before their eyes that the chickens have come home to roost. Madam President, allow me now to move on to an area that is very close and very important. I've always mentioned in this Honorable House. Very important to me because it is a sector in which I worked all my life, and that is education. It is fair to say, Madam President, that education is the great equalizer. It narrows the gap between the haves and the have-nots. It allows some of us to be able to find our place in all the various strata of society. And so in a developing country like St. Lucia, we would expect that education and human resource development has to be at the forefront of any government's development, a national development agenda. It has to be. Because I've said repeatedly that the number one resource we have in this country is our human resource. And so, Madam President, in a COVID era, you would expect, and it is very, very clear, that the idea of e-learning is even more critical than it used to be. It has become not just a choice, but an obligation. It's a must. We have no choice. Students returned to school yesterday for the third term, and they continue with their rotation, and the challenges continue with our teachers, our parents, and other stakeholders of education. So in a 2020-21 budget, you as an educator, as a parent, as a teacher, as a student, would look to hear and pay attention to pronouncements that will address the challenges that we face in our schools. And so the arguments that have been presented, where it became very clear what happened to us as in an education system where laptops were pushed aside and all different explanations have been given and excuses. I recall we heard from people cannot eat them to we should equip the schools with computer labs instead. And then I think it was even mentioned by the leader of government business that students were using it to do DJ and other things that were 15-year-old child or 12-year-old child. And you put a phone or any electronic device or smart device in their hands, they will explore. So I return to that argument that this was no excuse. And there has been none that has been able to stick for this important learning tool to have been removed and our students to have been deprived. And so, where are we now? So here is the argument that is being provided. The alternative is e-books. And I've spoken about that several times before. So I want to ask the question, can a student use e-books to do their SBAs? Can they download Zoom on it to do their online instruction? Can they do the virtual DJ on it if they choose to? Can they, now the IT program in information technology has a programming component. Can they even access that on e-books? Madam President, these excuses and these alternatives just will not stick. And no matter how many times they are brought up, we know that what has been done in terms of the government's decision has severely compromised our students, particularly in the COVID environment. So, Madam President, what is the government offering now in light of the challenges with COVID in this new dispensation? Under Head 52, Section 03 to 9 of the estimates on page 421, Madam President, there was an allocation in the previous period 2019-2020 of $6,532,268. And in this estimate, Madam President, I could not believe that there was absolutely no allocation, zero allocation for computerization of schools in this country. In this budget, zero allocation for computerization of schools. And we're talking about industrialization 4.0. I'll get to that a little later. The Prime Minister did make reference to it. Industrialization 4.0 and so on. Madam President, that is unacceptable. That is woefully, that is unacceptable. So, Madam President, I now ask, if that is the case, how are we going to deal with the challenge of CXC, the Caribbean Examination Council regional organization, that has now made most of the testing and the examinations digital and online? So do we have no need for the requisite infrastructure for maintenance and the management that is required for CXC e-testing? Madam President, CXC is not going to wait for St. Lucia. All of the countries in the Caribbean, they have to conform and they have to get to the standard. And even when they have made certain adjustments because of the situation with COVID, there still are basic minimums that we must achieve if we are to be able to deal with the challenge of online learning and online and e-testing. And in this budget, we can't find that allocation. Madam President, the Prime Minister mentioned in his budget speech that there were some smart classrooms. He mentioned smart classrooms, and that was like, I mean, when I hear that, it's exciting. Smart classrooms, and that is where we need to go in this era. But what was a little disappointing is that we have a total of 22 public and 3 private secondary schools. So that's a total of 25. And 71 public primary and 6 private primary schools. That's a total of 77. But Madam President, on page 44 of the Prime Minister's budget address, when he mentioned smart classrooms, or I was hoping it would be smart schools, and on page page 24, Madam President, his reference was made that we are in the process of developing or having 3 smart classrooms in 3 primary and 2 secondary schools. Smart classrooms in 3 primary and 2 secondary schools. So, Madam President, if you do the math again, and that would add up to about 8,000 8,000 students who are going to have access to learning devices. Madam President, out of a total of 77 primary schools, in this budget, in 2021, where we need to take a leap, we have to really take a leap in terms of technology in schools. We're talking about 3 classrooms in 3 primary and classrooms, smart classrooms in 2 secondary schools. Madam President, let's look at the enrollment of our students. We have about 25,447 students, and out of that figure, if all the fancy talk that we're hearing, just about 8,000 of them have a learning device, a digital learning device. I don't even want to say whether it's laptop or e-books. Let's just call it learning device because this has been a whole mess. 8,000. That is less than 1/3 of the student population in 2021 have access to a learning device. Madam President, what does that say about our readiness, our preparation, our ability to adapt to the current situation? That is why I mentioned, to what extent is this budget dealing with what confronts us presently? If this is what we're going to do, then I have to say that the budget is not responding to the situation that we're facing. And here is another example, Madam President. So, the use of the technology that we boast about is not supported by some of the allocations and the pronouncements that have been made. So, it's basically a lot of fancy talk, but no policies to back it up. I did mention, Madam President, the issue of the computerization, and right now it was presented as if it was such a grandiose, brand new idea that we're working on island-wide GINet for the country. But Madam President, that started, island-wide GINet started long ago under Jimmy Fletcher and Robert Lewis. So I'm yet to see what exactly about it is so new and so, you know. You have sometimes to give credit where it's due. Madam President, on the matter of smart classrooms, I want to end that part of my presentation and ask a question. Speaking of smart classrooms, what exactly is going on with these smart classrooms, the 3 primary and 2 secondary that were mentioned? There is supposed to be the construction of a smart classroom underway at the school where I worked before I moved on, and that is the Miku Secondary School. I recall the struggles that I encountered dealing with lack of space and the challenges of the physical plant. And after 5 years, we have an announcement that there's going to be a smart block. But Madam President, I want to ask, how smart is this block that is being spoken of? Because my understanding is that the electricals, the designing, the wiring, the water harvesting from the solar panels that should be going on the roof and all of those things that make it climate smart and the whole package that comes with a smart block are not in there. So I'll wait a little longer and hope that this is essentially a smart block.
Senator, you have 15 more minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. I think I'll be fine. We mentioned, and the Minister for Education made reference to it, that there'll be no child left behind. That's another lovely statement. All the nice things are being said. No child will be left behind. So I ask, what about the early childhood people? Where are they in this agenda, particularly those who did not, or who no longer have a place or a home for them to conduct or to have their preschoolers in the Diga Community Center and the Lacoville Community Center. Where do these preschool administrators go? And as you know this, Madam President, this term, the early childhood educators returned to school as well. They were out, but they've returned to school. So we have new challenges with all of these protocols and all of these education issues, health issues, and social issues with the early childhood people. And where are they on this agenda? Madam President, school feeding is another area that was quite important, and the government did promise doubling the allocation or doubling the school feeding for St. Lucian students. But Madam President, where is the allocation for that in this budget for school feeding? If you're going to double the school feeding, the contribution to school feeding, where's the allocation? It has to match. Madam President, I don't think I want to continue on education because it is so depressing that I think I need to move to another area. Meritocracy is something that I believe in, and people, our children, our country needs to embrace the idea that people, all of us can go forward, all of us can move on, all of us can achieve. But there must be a system that is fair. I listened to the Minister for Commerce, who is a representative of Choiseul Saltibus, mention very proudly that he was able to secure 2 scholarships every year for students in his constituency. That's very good. I wish all of us could have secured several more. But my question is there equity and meritocracy in that system? Unlike the $500 bursaries that went to every child who wrote common entrance, whether you came from Choiseul, anywhere else in the country, whether your parliamentary rep was in government or was in opposition, the system put in place for students and for St. Lucians to access these resources was not based on who's your pal rep, but based on meritocracy. You wrote the exam, you get the bursary. Same with the laptops. You go to school, you public school, private school, you're from Dauphin or from Laurentius, you get it. So when I hear ministers talking about getting 2 scholarships for a year, that's 5 by 2, 10 scholarships for a term for children in their constituency, what is the system that is used? What about, I'll leave that one for later. Madam President, I'm just saying that I believe the system, the method used for allocating resources, particularly to children, has to be based on merit, and it has to be more equitable. When I hear ministers talking about them getting the scholarships for children in their constituencies, it does not suggest that it's going through an equitable process. Because what about those who do not have a say in the cabinet? Madam President, having said that, I will refer to an example of a more equitable approach. And that is something that was mentioned by the political leader of the removal of facilities fees by this party. Madam President, I was a school principal, and I can tell you the headaches that we have, both parents and schools, when children have to go through 5 years and they are unable to pay the facilities fees that the school needs. And you are in a dilemma because you cannot force them, some of them cannot, but you have your daily maintenance and other challenges. And I believe that these types of initiatives are more equitable. Every child in St. Lucia will benefit, no matter where you come from. Madam President, I also believe that the removal of the CXC payments that was announced by the political leader is also a good example of the equitable distribution of resources.
Senator Sinclair.
Madam President, I'd like to invoke Standing Order 35.3 to request an additional 15 minutes for the Senate.
Which one is it, Senator? Would you like that done? Because you said earlier no.
much time do I have now? 10?
About 8 minutes?
Sorry.
10 minutes?
Yeah, I will be able to. So thank you, because I think this morning I thought we had agreed that we would stay within our time, although the leader of government business didn't. I'm hoping that we all will do likewise. But I will wrap up within 10 minutes. Thank you, Madam President, including the 2 that I just lost. So, Madam President, yes, I was saying that the removal of the CXC payments for compulsory subjects like mathematics and English, I think is a welcome initiative. And again, I remembered having to turn to private businesses, friends of the school, past student associations, foundations to help children at my former school just to be able to meet the expense of paying for the CSEC subjects. That is a serious problem that I think we can address by those types of announcements. Not scholarships for some in only certain persons' constituencies, for all the students. So, Madam President, I am very happy when I hear those kinds of pronouncements, and I think this is the way that a government ought to operate. Madam President, I moved quickly to youth and sports development. We are in Youth Month. April is Youth Month. And I must say I'm very saddened that, as the young people will say, I don't feel the vibe. Youth Month. I know some of the activities, because of the protocols, may not be possible, but that doesn't mean that there can't be other things that can inspire and help the youth get involved and celebrate Youth Month. So I am not sure what exactly is going on, but I used to be very actively involved in this type of initiative, and I must say that this year I'm just not feeling it. Madam President, Center of Excellence for Sports, that was a big announcement. That was supposed to be in Grosley. And in this budget, where again is the allocation? This is supposed to be the biggest undertaking in developing our elite athletes in St. Lucia. Where is the allocation? And by the way, Madam President, lots of these students who have, especially from the South, who had enrolled in that program have withdrawn. Many of them, particularly from the South, Choiseul, Soufrière, Vieux-Fort, and so on, they have withdrawn. They are not attending. They are not going. And we must ask the question, why is it that the students are no longer part of that academy? They are elite athletes. They are brilliant. What's going on? So I think we need to examine this and address it. Madam President, one of the things that I think has been mentioned quite a lot on the sports is the issue of the AstroTurf or the artificial turf. Now I want to use an example in Deriso because I live there, and the Deriso playing field was almost my second home for many years. I noticed that this playing field is now one of those that is now decked with the artificial grass. And it is a football pitch. Being from a sports background, nobody can question that, and being a former sports administrator and a former school teacher and principal, I think we have to look a little bit further than just making one main community facility a single sport facility. This playing field served the Deriso Combined School, the Blanchard Combined School. When there is football between Angers Secondary and other schools, that was their home ground. It served the purpose of track and field. That was where we had cricket. It served multiple sports and multiple groups. So am I now to expect that if you don't play football and you're from Deriso, that you have nowhere to recreate? And I would have been heartened if there was an alternative facility nearby that was upgraded to accommodate the athletes who were affected, the non-footballers, the cricketers, the track and field athletes, the students from the 2 schools or from the 3 schools. So you have one facility for a single sport. What happens to the rest? And I know we have past former sportsmen in this Senate. What is it you're telling the rest of the children? We need to think about those. So, Madam President, I move quickly to culture and creative industries. And then I wrap up. Under that section, Madam President, I want to refer again to another center of excellence. That one is in my community, where I live. That is the Center of Excellence for Arts that was earmarked for the Angers Secondary School. Not even the teachers of the Aja Secondary School that I checked with recently know much about what's going on. What's the update? I know we have a minister responsible for culture in this honorable house. I look forward to some enlightenment, some explanation. Because this concept, unlike there's some treatment being given to the one for sports, what about the one for arts? What are we saying to our young people about the arts? What are we saying? A center of excellence for arts, nothing at all has been said or done. The Aja Secondary School is still there. There's nothing going on. 5 years have passed. Madam President, the recording studio that was promised to Dagger in Deriso, he's still waiting for it. Now, this week we heard an announcement by the Prime Minister of Jamaica, and I know our Prime Minister, he tends to pattern a lot of his policies and some of his actions with Jamaica, which is not a bad thing. People have their preferences. But I heard that the Prime Minister of Jamaica this week, just over the weekend, he rolled out a stimulus package for what he called dancehall artists in Jamaica. And that was a stimulus package in response to the COVID situation. Now, we know dancehall music and Jamaica, what it means. There is this identity thing. Well, I do believe that St. Lucia does have some kind of identity. And since our PM likes to pattern what happens in Jamaica, here's an opportunity for our art form to be stimulated as well. Well, there needs to be some stimulus, not just a playlist, is it? That's it? We need something more sustainable for our arts people to feel that there's something coming to them in this difficult time. So, Madam President, the Prime Minister also mentioned very, very nicely something to do with the fourth industrial revolution. Sounds very nice again. And Madam President, this concept is about automation, digitization, human resource developments, robotics, quantum computing. But having heard the mention, when I look at the estimates and I look at the budget speech and the presentation, what is presented to us is a lot of traditional approaches to governance and management. Traditional projects, infrastructure, roads. That's what I see. So while you talk about, 4.0 industrial revolution, nice stuff, your policies and actions are going in the opposite direction. So if you're serious about something, let your policies match your proclamations. Madam President, this budget, in my view, should demonstrate responsible fiscal management that reflects the current state of our country and our economy in the middle of this pandemic. Madam President, I believe that with the scarce resources that we have, this budget needed to have done that. It needed to reflect the budget of a caring government. But it doesn't. I'm afraid it does not. And so I will have to wrap up here and tell you, Madam President, that the time will come very soon when our electorate will have to decide whether to categorically reject this government and its myopic vision, like the people of Marsha did, and of course, to categorically reject a government that has, by its own admission, sought to serve those who bought into its vision, resulting in what we call two St. Lucias, those that buy in and those that don't. And those that buy in, they get the resource allocation. Those that do not, they do not get. Or, Madam President, whether the electorate will instead choose a team of men and women, including myself, who actually care about all St. Lucians, regardless of whether you categorically rejected or whether you accepted the vision of the government. Because the government is a government for all St. Lucians. And the people will decide which one they choose. And so I look forward to that. Our people, I said, I look forward to them actually selecting and choosing a government that actually cares. A government that is for all of the people and not for some of the people, led by a leader you can trust, and a government that is going to put people first. Madam President, with this, I want to conclude my presentation and thank you for your indulgence.
Senator London.
Madam President, colleague senators, good afternoon. I thank God for all this unfolding universe, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I thank him for today because any day above ground is a blessed day, a day of opportunity. Madam President, today is no exception. I am above ground, and today presents me an opportunity. Madam President, some say this is a part of natural progression in the many chapters that are written for the life of Vincent London. I am therefore honored and filled with great humility. Though this elevation is temporal, it will forever remain a part of my personal record as well as that of St. Lucia. Madam President, I want to continue by expressing my sympathies and condolences to those who have lost loved ones during this dreaded pandemic and ask that all continue to follow the government's protocols. I want to quote, Madam President, the Honorable Prime Minister during his 2021-2022 budget address on page 2. And he says, Mr. Speaker, it is with great sadness that I wish to thank or ask you for permission to pay respect to the St. Lucians who have lost lives to the coronavirus this past year. Our nation grieves, he continues, with the families of the 64 St. Lucians at the time, Madam President, who have succumbed to COVID-19. These 64 families devastated by the loss of their loved ones, and for this we sympathize with them. Every life is precious as we share in the loss. End of quote. Madam President, these are the words of a caring and kind leader. The words that are characteristics of a caring leader. Madam President, there is no doubt I support this caring government. And during my contribution to today's discourse, I will lend legitimate support to the bill brought before the Senate. During my presentation, I humbly implore your office, Madam President, to permit me, during my allotted time, to also express my thanks and eternal gratitude to a few key persons who have played a critical role in me being here today. I recognize, Madam President, is temporal, but I still need to do so. His Excellency, for example, Madam President, Sir Neville Snack, St. Lucia's Governor General, for the appointment. Of course, the Prime Minister and political leader of the United Workers' Party, the Honorable Alan M. Chasney, and his advisors for affording this opportunity. Madam President, earlier I stated an area of opportunity. What these words mean to me, Madam President, and as it should to all of us, is to see beyond our challenges, to understand its difficulties, to note the trials and tribulations make us strong. I will repeat this, Madam President. It means to see beyond our challenges, to understand its difficulties, to note that trials and tribulations make us strong. Madam President, we need to be reminded every time we take a sip from a bottle of wine that the grapes went through the press. They were squeezed and drained of every last drop before this beautiful nectar we consume and we enjoy every time we take a sip from a bottle of wine. I have absolutely no doubt that COVID-19 presented challenges never experienced, Madam President. The pandemic is not over, and therefore the set of challenges will continue, but we must also by necessity be prepared to deal with it successfully. Madam President, I am sure you have heard about a phenomenon called Murphy's Law. The long and short of this theory is what could go wrong, Madam President, will go wrong. What you say, Madam President, is my point. No matter what goes wrong, there are always opportunity. I can give many examples, Madam President. For example, because of 911, Homeland Security was created. That department, Madam President, created security and screening protocols that the aviation sector had never seen. As a result of thieves and theft, fences, alarms, burglar bars, closed circuit TV, etc. were created. As a result of accidents, traffic signs, median barriers, crossovers, pedestrian crossings were created. And I dare say, Madam President, as a result of the Labour Party, the UWP was created. Madam President, the coronavirus certainly dealt the entire globe a bad hand. It did not spare any continent or any region of this world. However, Madam President, COVID-19 also created many opportunities. Pharmaceutical companies, for example, who produce personal protective devices, or PPEs as we call it, are reporting profit margins at levels never seen. Food production is in limited supplies due to COVID-19 restrictions. Therefore, market forces of supply and demand are at high play, thus significantly increasing the profits for those who have the goods to sell. Madam President, Zoom and other virtual online conference media platforms are also reporting record profits. In fact, Madam President, others are now rushing to create their own virtual platform. They are cashing in or trying to cash in on the opportunities that the coronavirus has presented. Locally, Madam President, COVID-19 restrictions have caused entrepreneurial experimentation, as in profitable grocery delivery services. Innovative, I call it. A well-known fast food company has now added home and office delivery in addition to its online order and pickup services. Finger looking good, Madam President. I do not celebrate death, Madam President, but morgues, mortuary, funeral homes, as well as cemetery committees are also reporting unprecedented profits. Madam President, this government led by the Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chasney was raised to lead this nation for such a time as this. This government under his leadership has risen to the challenges and created by COVID-19 and have created opportunities of it. Now, Madam President, I know the opposite will be quick to criticize me for these proclamations, but you can never find something if you are not looking for it. They are not looking for opportunities, Madam President. Instead, they are busy looking to criticize, critiquing everything from A to Z, even if it benefits their own constituents and constituency. There is therefore no doubt they will vehemently criticize the expenditure programs to be implemented in the new fiscal or financial year 2021-22. Madam President, we must always be fiscally responsible. Any serious government must act responsibly with the state's finances. Why, I ask Madam President, would this government throw caution to the wind and be fiscally irresponsible? Madam President, would any government appropriate close to $2 billion and be irresponsible with capital works and other areas that require financial injection from government? Don't the government know it has to renew its mandate at the end of every 5 years? Madam President, this is a responsible and caring government. This is a government who is unafraid to challenge. This is a government who is unafraid of the challenges at hand. A government who is creating opportunities for decades and generations to come. Madam President, the opposite is the other ones, in fact, asking the government to be fiscally irresponsible. They are asking the government to stop all of their developmental projects and programs and just give the people the money. The question is, Madam President, what happens after that? When the money is spent, do you go back to borrow large sums to give again? Or do you build infrastructure and create employment for sustained growth? Madam President, this government accedes to the teaching of teach a man how to fish as opposed to giving him a fish. It does not create a dependency society. Instead, it creates an independent society. Madam President, this government has created opportunities in all sections of St. Lucia. But naturally, I would like to highlight areas of opportunity in the south of the island. That's where I'm from, Viewfort. To be precise, Bellevue, Viewfort. Madam President, these opportunities range from flood mitigation projects, field upgrades, road rehabilitation, bus shelter repairs, water projects, Wasco Administrative Center, airport redevelopment, first world-class call center projects in the form of Wojo Labs and ITEL BPO, St. Jude's Hospital building projects, lots for housing, etc., etc., etc. Madam President, these areas of opportunity are not specific from Dennery to Soufrière, but from Groseillers to Castries, down to Ancillary and Canaries. Madam President, this government have done more to serve the people of St. Lucia in a crisis than any other administration. Other challenges were not near what the coronavirus has dealt us, yet the prior administration could not manage and were told to go, get your house in order, get your management plans in order. Madam President, it is reported that St. Lucia is the largest economy in the OECS grouping. We also have the largest population, Madam President. It is only reasonable to conclude we will have larger fiscal responsibilities. Therefore, expenditure will be greater when compared to other member states. It is therefore reasonable, Madam President, to conclude borrowing will be greater. Madam President, I am no accountant or economist, but if I can conclude this, it should not be so hard for others to do so. Madam President, these debates gave the opposition in the lower house a perfect opportunity to wow St. Lucians, both here and abroad, with their grand vision. They failed miserably. Amidst all the criticisms and angry pronouncements, not one gave an alternative as to how to handle the COVID situation or crime or education or anything, Madam President. Instead, they kept calling this government arrogant and vindictive. They criticize wardens working hard to save lives, yet they fail to provide no alternative or an alternative. They criticize the state of emergencies and COVID-19 protocols, yet have never provided an alternative. They criticize the open borders, yet cannot suggest to hotel workers, tour operators, restaurant owners, vendors, taxi drivers, as well as their dependents on how to buy their food or pay for their bills. Madam President, as we speak, we are currently enjoying increased increased trade and local commerce, reopening of key sectors, example schools, public and private learning institutions. It is therefore, Madam President, imperative that our administration continues to nurture this encouraging sign of growth as we transition into a coexisting with the COVID-19 environment. Madam President, this caring government has demonstrated and will continue responsibly to manage the country's finances as it builds a new St. Lucia. Madam President, as I move towards the end of my presentation, I wish to quote the Honorable Prime Minister once again during his 2021-2022 budget address, page 13, paragraph 2. And I quote, "Meanwhile, St. Lucia is poised to experience a partial economic recovery in 2021 as well. This will be driven by an expected increase in economic activity in the second half of 2021. Public sector construction is expected to drive growth in 2021 as a result of the timely implementation of various major planned projects aimed at upgrading the core infrastructure, among other initiatives." He continues, Madam President, "Most of these are in the form of shovel-ready projects, which are ongoing, while others are on the cusp of commencement. In addition," he says, "the tourism sector is expected to partly recover and boost overall economic activity, with positive impacts on investor and consumer confidence." He ends by saying, "Increased activity is also expected from the increased ease of doing business as consumers and business continue to adopt to the new normal." End of quote, Madam President. It is therefore against this backdrop, Madam President, that I join my colleagues in supporting the appropriation bill for 2021-2022 financial year. I thank you.
Let the record reflect this was the maiden submission by Senator London. Leader of Government Business. Senator Oje.
Thank you, Madam President. Just checking that we intend to break for lunch? Or should we indicate
No,
a desire to speak?
No, the minute, I just asked Leader of Government Business and she's not, no, we're not breaking for lunch just yet. One more. Senator Sinclair.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, good afternoon this time, Madam President. And to my esteemed fellow senators, I would like to pay condolences to former Senator Joachim Henry on the loss of his dear son, and to all the other bereaved families in St. Lucia who have suffered the loss, especially through COVID-19. Before I start, Madam President, I'd like to welcome the new independent senator to the House. But I would like to, the senator on the other side, that he is probably placed in a position where he will have to learn a little as to the modus operandi of the people, the esteemed senators and party that he has just joined. Because there are some questions that he asked, Madam President. He asked whether a government would actually borrow money and waste it. The answer is a resounding yes, it is happening at the moment. He also intimated that the government is creating opportunities. Then again, the question is, creating opportunities for whom? It is certainly not for the starving people of this island, I can assure you. And further on, I would have gone into speaking about the danger of creating oligopolies in this country. And an oligopoly is a large firm, a commercial juggernaut that controls a market share. And we have a situation where, in the situation of the telecom companies, we actually had to form regulatory commissions to actually control their way of doing business. So these are dangers that are on the horizon, and I beg that you exercise caution. To the substantial business, Madam President. I rise here today to challenge on points of economic policy, social philosophy, logic and rationale, the appropriation bill which seeks to give authority to the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the period 2020 to 2021 and has been sanctioned by the House of Assembly in a previous sitting. Before I raise a few other pertinent matters, Madam President, relating to the said bill before us for discussion, let me make a very telling observation relating to the cover page of the document which we often refer to as the Economic and Social Review. If we look closely, Madam President, we will see this, the photo which represents the spike proteins of the dreaded SARS-CoV-2 virus, better known as the COVID-19 disease, which has virtually decimated the entire world and transformed our lives in so many ways. But further examination will show, Madam President, that the disease has been managed by countries big and small in a variety of ways. Ace countries such as Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and St. Kitts and Nevis have fared relatively well, whilst others such as the USA, Brazil, and St. Lucia have performed poorly. The striking common denominator amongst the grade F countries can be characterized by the level of attentiveness or lack thereof of the leaders, namely Donald J. Trump, Jair Bolsonaro, and our own Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Alan M. Shastny. These leaders have failed to follow the science of medicine, and so the dire consequences of disproportionate loss of life is something that lends itself to being very unfortunate. The Donald consistently dismissed Dr. Anthony Fauci and his proposition to wear masks, while Bolsonaro embraced the use of hydroxychloroquine as the next best beverage after Kool-Aid. Again, here in St. Lucia, Madam President, we fail to fully advocate testing and instead assume that visitors tended naturally to be disease immune, plus that the lethal coronavirus British variant B112 was only worthy of cursory surveillance, and not even a mention in the 1.5 pages in the budget address outlining our COVID response. It has since been very apparent, Madam President, that the variant, together with others such as the South African and Indian derivatives, may well be mounting a counterattack to the anxiously sought vaccination alternatives. Through you, Madam President, I would like to congratulate the Honorable Senator responsible for health in actually stepping back from the last presentation in the House and taking the suggestion, the very humble suggestion, that oxygen being an important element could have been produced easily. But I ask, Madam President, is it a little late in the game? Also, Madam President, ironically, now testing, as annotated on the same front cover of the 2022 review, has finally found its rightful place as one of the nodes of importance. But again, is it too late for the bereaved families? This is not how you put people first, Madam President. Putting people first means that your policy has to be aligned to your actions. And this is what the St. Lucia Labour Party will do. In summary of the COVID response, Madam President, the hackneyed assertion throughout the compilation of the budget address that the total disruption of our economy and so many other things COVID-related has been seen by many discerning citizens of this country as a smokescreen to avert all blame for the gross failure I referred to earlier. I turn to section 2 of the document here, which is the Prime Minister's budget address. And it reads in part, and I quote, "We examined our testing and contact tracing capability," unquote. This, I suggest, Madam President, should be read in proper context.
Where are you quoting from, Senator? And can I have the page, please?
Excuse me, Madam President?
Where are you
I must
quoting
apologize
from?
for getting some of the papers.
Where are you quoting from, and may I have the page, please?
It's page number 15, Madam President. The context that I was referring to, Madam President, is how non-existent was the testing then and how minimal is it now. Again, I contend, Madam President, that this is not how you show that you care about your people. I personally will not accept the failed excuse of the COVID-19 response as a get-out-of-jail-free card in the national game of monopoly being played by this administration. As if there was not enough structural failure for fair Helen, Madam President, she wishes to pose the following questions to our leaders. Was the country in negative growth in 2019? The colleague on this side has already debunked the promise of 50 to 60 tons of bananas being exportable to France and the rest of the EU. Are we still waiting for the 50 to 60 tons? Also, Madam President, this was long before COVID-19, before the current 2020 to 2021 budget. And furthermore, Madam President, where are the Mizi hotels the now deflated administration promised from 2016, long before COVID-19, before this current 2021 budget? Noteworthy to say, Madam President, that it was actually the SLP who was built the majority, the lion's share of hotels in this country. And another question, Madam President. Why was there a fundamental lack of caring for the people long before COVID-19 and before this current 2021 budget? I suggest, Madam President, that our people have been sacrificed at the altar of the tourism dollar. An incoming SLP administration will definitely put people first. With your approval, Madam President, I will turn to allocations which support the national road infrastructure. And this is on page 53 of the budget address for the financial year. The National Road Rehabilitation Program, with particular emphasis to the Grosley and Castries North Road projects, has been mentioned therein, albeit as a passing comment. I will still, however, Madam President, bring sharper focus to bear on this national program, as I have personally made a few observations which are grave enough to me and concerns me as a practicing quantity surveyor of over 42 years. In essence, I have been grappling with the two development concepts for this program. On one hand, Madam President, I have noted that in Soufrière Fort Saint-Jacques, the incumbent honorable member of Parliament laments that he is being accused of building roads to nowhere. Whereas, on the other hand, in the extreme north of the island, we have all seen no new roads to anywhere. In other words, Madam President, we seem to have embarked on an extremely expensive upgrading and maintenance project, which may well possess highly questionable motives. The troubling concerns which I alluded to are as follows. One, the value-added equity normally expected on the both massively expensive and infamous 2 kilometers of road in Grosley, which forms the upgrading works, are not apparent. For example, registered surveyors like myself, who conduct valuations, will not be inclined to reporting any significant increase in property value thereat purely on the upgrading of the wearing course or the wearing surface of the existing access roads. Such increases in an area characterized by very few virgin or undeveloped plots are usually influenced by various other demand and supply factors, together with macroeconomic considerations. An example of that, Madam President, is that from the Bois d'Orange area to the Bonte Gap, you would value property depending on size, attributes, appeal, between $55 and $90 a square foot. I can almost assure you that these values will not be increased in the short to medium term. I can also assure you, Madam President, that it would be easier to achieve a reduction in the commuting time from Castries to Grizzly and vice versa by reconfiguring the exit and entry points at the former Glass supermarket, the SNS store, and the Monterey Junction, instead of this highly costly arrangement. 2, also troubling, Madam President, and still on the paragraph relating to the national road infrastructure, is the contractual arrangements and lack of transparency in the procurement process. And I respectfully ask again, which form of contract was used to engage the hand-picked contractor? Was it the internationally familiar FIDIC, and FIDIC means the Fédération Internationale des Ingénieurs Civils, or a contract based on a schedule of rates, or a cost plus fixed fee contract, or a cost plus percentage contract? If it is the latter, Madam President, what we have simply is the more wastage that we have, the more overkill, the more money that goes into the contractor's pocket. Another question, Madam Deputy President, welcome to the chair, is that does this contract have any liquidated damages or other penalties for non-performance, such as design errors? And interestingly, who bears the brunt, who pays the cost of errors in the design, in the faulty works, and the subsequent demolition and reinstatement works? The foregoing, Madam Deputy President, are not questions posed only by qualified professionals, but also by a 21st century enlightened John public. After all, the government is only supposed to be a trustee of the consolidated fund. But we notice what's happening in St. Lucia at the moment with this uncaring administration. It is not a private enterprise. We noticed a couple of days ago, there was a big public relations exercise to actually take mayors from as far as Castries to have a visit at the ongoing, behind schedule, St. Jude's Hospital. And mind you, Madam Deputy President, St. Jude's Hospital is located in the extreme south of the island. You have Member of Parliament representing Beaufort South, Member of Parliament representing Beaufort North, Labrie. You have the next representative for Mico South right here in this chamber. And yet none of these individuals were invited on behalf of the people that they represent to conduct a tour of St. Jude's. It is not private enterprise. This is public funds. And we have to account to the whole of the electorate for the monies that are spent and even access to the building. But some of us who are very versed in economic development and science and accounts, the project does not belong to you. It belongs to the people. I strongly declare, Madam Deputy President, that the stunt now taking place at Rodney Bay is nonsense and not common sense. Conventionally, good practice dictates that the final commitment of the parties to a building contract is also is only known after the conduct of what we call the final account. Factoring into the equation documented or agreed additions and omissions inter alia, amongst others. So, Madam Deputy President, the burning question is interest on the upper limit of the contract sum already being paid? These are relevant questions. A passer, Madam Deputy President, let me also draw to your attention the fact that our highly glorified National Roads Program is very capital intensive. You can see a lot of backhoes and scrapers and excavators, and these pieces of equipment are rented at $300, $400, $500 per hour, vis-a-vis the normal person employed, the normal what we call the laborer, at $80 to $100 a day. And furthermore, Madam Deputy President, when you travel along a road finished with asphaltic concrete, there are different kinds of concrete, reinforced concrete, asphaltic concrete. The most expensive part of this road cross-section is the wearing cost or the surface, the black gold, the black tar. This all has to be imported together with the bitumen cut back in the form of kerosene. And this is not a project that normally generates a lot of employment, as we have been presented with in this house many times. This is a myth. Most of the money goes into equipment. Besides, have you ever driven past one of these projects and seen how many men work on the project? You hardly find any women. They are confined to functions of traffic management and traffic signs. But we know, Madam Deputy President, that most of the pillars of our households in St. Lucia and many countries around the world are women. So what are we doing as far as employment of these people? Let me send out a soft word of caution to the relevant stakeholders that contracts under seal may well be subject to reassessment and review under the legal consideration of quantum merit. Now, quantum merit, in the time when we did the old school, is the Latin for value for money. Bearing in mind in this case that the overarching fiduciary responsibility of a government in the expenditure of the people's money is accountability. However, in the same paragraph, I will hasten to add that I am not a legal eagle, but only a quantity surveyor of some experience. But I can assure you that an incoming SLP administration has enough capability in its toolbox to actually conduct all of these exercises. I repeat once again, Madam Deputy President, this National Road Infrastructure Program is not private enterprise. Finally, in the contract of governance of our nation, Madam Deputy President, you may well have found my statement of claim compelling enough that there is sufficient grounds to vitiate the contract of faith between the current administration and a sour electorate come the day of the next examination at the polls. I thank you on behalf of the Senate, Madam President, for having indulged me today, and I also would like to thank, through you, Madam President, the leader of the opposition, who has been gracious enough and thoughtful enough to have appointed me as an opposition senator under Section 24(2)(b) of our Constitution. Long live the party of bread, freedom of justice, and long live the St. Lucia Labour Party.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that this sitting is suspended for 1 hour for lunch, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that the House be suspended for lunch for 1 hour, returning at 2:30, 2:35. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting adjourned.
We've just seen the start of the debates in the upper house following the tabling of the Appropriations bill in the Senate today by the Leader of Government Business, Senator Honorable Mary Isaac. And she did go over the intention of her government for this coming fiscal year, similar to the Prime Minister and leader of government in the lower house, speaking on the intentions of the government in the next year. Her statement, her contribution in the Honorable House this morning was followed by a response from the leader of the opposition in the Senate, in the person of Senator the Honorable Gideon Ferdinand, and also this was followed by the maiden submission by Senator Vincent London. Just to mention, this was his first submission in the Honorable House. He was just sworn in this morning as a government senator. And wrapping up the morning session was a contribution by Senator Terence St. Clair from the opposition side. Of course, all in response to the Appropriation Bill 2021-2022 being tabled in the Honorable House this morning by the Leader of Government Business, Senator the Honorable Mary Isaac. And it comes a week after we saw in Parliament, the House of Assembly meeting for the tabling of the Appropriations Bill. We saw last week the Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Honorable Alan Shastney, speaking, providing his budget address to the public intention of the government for the next year. And the debate continues now in the upper house. I want to remind you before we go back to studio that the government of St. Lucia has extended the COVID-19 prevention and control protocols until May 16th, 2021, as St. Lucia continues to manage the spread of this virus here on island. The daily curfew remains from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. until May 16th, 2021. Also, we have the work-from-home regime that continues to be encouraged by businesses and reduced contact meetings, so all agencies and businesses can continue to implement a blended service or operations approach where possible for their employees. Business operating hours, meanwhile, and commercial activities shall cease operations at 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. daily, consistent with the curfew that has been enforced through the ongoing state of emergency. Restrictions on social gatherings, no more than 10 people of the immediate family. In public and private settings, individuals are encouraged to limit their contact as much as possible and adhere to all the necessary protocols, as well as mindful to the general hygiene procedure. No allowance is being given for mass gatherings, social events of any kind, or loud music permits. For religious institutions, all daily or regular church and religious services are permitted in accordance with the social distancing protocols. Religious institutions may carry out services according to the square footage of their church, same as what obtained previously. This is guided by each institution's guidelines and protocols approved by the Ministries of Equity and Health. And special religious rites, including baptisms, weddings, funerals, they will all be limited to a maximum of 50 individuals. That is inclusive of observers and service leaders. In terms of special events, we have boat excursions for up to 10 persons. This is only permissible for crude, yacht, charters, and family boaters. We'd like to emphasize that no day boat party charters, so no boat rides are being allowed consistent with the no permission being given for mass gatherings. Excursion plans must be reported to the lighthouse ahead of the journey, and again we remind you no dayboat party charters will be allowed. There are also restrictions on sporting activity. However, all competitive and high contact sporting activities inclusive of indoor and outdoor trainings, local competitions or social activities remain prohibited. Provisions apply for individual or immediate family households to exercise in a safe open air space. Gyms are permitted per square footage, and protocols. A non-contact sporting activity is allowed if there are no more than 15 persons in attendance, excluding spectators and crowds. As you know, school has been permitted to reopen in the physical setting, so students are back at school as of Monday, 19th April. And they are required, however, these schools to follow strict protocols and regulations issued by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. Their continuity plan for schools in St. Lucia to operate safely on a specified system. The daily curfew remains 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. St. Lucia. Gentle reminder, and we do hope that you adhere to the protocols, remain on the safe side of the law as we continue to keep watch over COVID-19. We go now back to studio, and we encourage you to tune in an hour's time when we expect the Senate to resume continued debates on the Appropriations Bill for 2021-2022 right here in this Honorable House.